Please stand. Call the meeting to order. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you all for coming tonight. We've got some guests here. That's exciting. And we have welcomed Lynn Jackson Donnelly as our new alderperson.
Alderman's good.
Alderman is good. Okay. One quick announcement. I forgot at the last meeting, Mike, that I'm to remind everyone at home and here tonight that Green Up Day is Saturday, May 4th. And the bags and schedule and so on will be at City Hall, City Park from 8 to 12. 7 to 12. So anyone that wants to partake, pick up bags, whatever, can do that. And hopefully you'll all participate. Minutes from April 9th. Has everyone read them? Do we have any? Do we have a motion to accept them as presented? Any discussion or any corrections? None. You've seconded it, Rennie?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Warrants have been passed and approved. We're all set there. You have those, Joan?
I do.
Okay. Bixby Library Board of Trustees. You presented or gave to Mel a handout, PowerPoint, outlining what you're looking for, what the board's looking for this year for their the city's contribution to the Bixby Library. I've had a chance to look at it. I don't know if you'd like to speak to it at all to start, or if you would just like to answer questions. I know it's an increase from last year, and a lot of this explains why. Do you want to say anything, or?
Well, yes, I'd like about 5 minutes.
Okay.
Just to make a couple of summary comments, actually. I think the presentation, let me stand up. I think the presentation speaks for itself, and certainly if anyone has any questions, I'm more than happy to field those. But the Bixby Library is working very hard to be relevant to all the communities that we serve. And by relevant, I mean that while we've got a lot of our patronage using the library in the traditional sense, they come in, check out a book, look through things, check out a book, leave, or come and take part in one of the meetings that may be some service-oriented activity that's going on at the library. But we also recognize that people get information in different ways now. People don't read books the same way. People don't do their research the same way. So if you walked into the Bixby today, what you would see would be people with laptops working inside the building. We have Wi-Fi. You might see people working on the patron computers that we have. We have 3 up currently, and we've got plans for more. If you own a Bixby library card, you can also take advantage of downloadable audio and ebooks, so you can do all of your shopping for books on your sofa at home. So we're working to become even more relevant in the communities. We recognize the digital age. This isn't just because the library looks the same as it did when anyone was in high school or in grade school. It's not the same. You need to go inside the building and get a sense for some of the changes that are happening. The second is just a point of clarification. On the last page of the PowerPoint, where we've said that our endowment is $330,000 and change, one of the things that we'd like to clarify is this. When we think of the Bixby, when the trustees think of the Bixby, we think of 2 separate components. There's our collection, all the books we have, all of our historical records and the artifacts in the museum, all that piece of it. But the other piece is also the physical structure that we have stewardship of. So a couple of years ago, when we were advised that we were to receive the majority of the Barbara Austin estate, we thought long and hard about how we would use that money. That money's not described in that, in the $336,000. We have set aside, to the best of our ability to reserve this money, we have about $284,000 that is earmarked just for the physical structure. We need to be able to ensure that our library, that beautiful 100-year-old building, has got the facilities maintenance that it needs and the money reserved for that facilities maintenance that it needs. So to the best of our ability, we're going to try to keep that money away from what we would consider to be part of our operating income. So just as a way of disclosure of the point that we made in the PowerPoint presentation. And I guess finally, in summary, there's not usually too many of these opportunities to come before a board such as yourself and express our appreciation for all of the support and the generosity that we get, not just from Vergennes, also from Addison, Panton, Waltham, Ferrisburg. So on behalf of the trustees and certainly everyone that's connected with the Bixby, thank you for your generosity. Thank you for your support, and we appreciate it. We'll take the money and we'll use it wisely.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
Does anyone have any questions? Lynn, do you have any questions?
My only question would be is what did we fund it for before this request?
Yeah, I think currently in the budget, Lynn, I think it's around $32,000. That would be over on page 4 of the budget, about halfway down. Bixby Library Support, $30,352. Just so everyone knows, that is what we pay the library. We actually, the way that the math works is the insurance on that building is purchased through the city's policy, and there's around $4,000 in so-called insurance premiums or contributions that comes out of that $30,000. So their check, instead of being about $7,500 per quarter, is $6,500 per quarter because of the insurance. The other thing, as I think it's mentioned in here towards the end, you know, the city, and when I say the city, I'm really talking about the Public Works crew. The Public Works crew has for, I'm going to say decades, taken care of the library lawn and the library parking lot. And so there is an in-kind reduction in that we, and I'm going to be very honest with you, they actually overstated the value of that, and I told them that it really, we do spend a lot of time there, but it really should be fair. Obviously that the Public Works, whatever the cost is to plow and to rake and mow the lawn, we should just simply calculate that, and that's what that reflection is. I think it's the $5,000 is in essence, you know, all the lawn care that's done and snow removal. So one of the things, Bill, there was a letter that came in a number of months ago whereby the per capita request was in the vicinity of, you know, $23 or $24, something like that, which equates to about $60,000. They've gone back and re-examined that, not only for Vergennes, but for the other towns, and that's what you're seeing, that per capita in at $18.94. And what's really amazing is the sheet that outlines how other libraries are funded and if you look at it on a per capita basis, you know, I can tell you that it jumps off the page that when you compare it to some other communities, what the municipalities are being requested to support this library is measurably less than when compared to other municipalities.
Yeah. Yep. Joe, any questions? No. Ziggy, any questions?
Who owns the building?
The library was deeded to the city of Vergennes on December 31st, 1971. It was previously owned by a nonprofit corporation, and it was transferred to the city. I think there may have been some was probably at your father's request, Bill.
It had
to,
something to do with the
like that.
nonprofit status of it, I think, and the
Right.
assets.
So there, the deed, it was deeded to the city. However, the deed makes reference to the management and control of the library resting with the perpetuating board of trustees. However, in the case of Christine, there's a sentence in there whereby the trustees agree to appoint a person designated by the city council. So that's what, in March, at least for the past few years, the city council has designated Christine Bradford as the designee, and the board has her on the board.
Well, Chris mentioned about maintenance on the building. Aren't we, so if we own the building, should we be doing the maintenance on the building?
Absolutely not. Zig.
That was fair.
So, and really, the way that the deed is written, the management, control, operation, maintenance, and repair of the building rest with the board of trustees.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Randy, questions?
No. Not at all.
Lowell, how about you? Rennie? I have a question. On that final page that shows the draws and the percentages, that endowment draw of $72,000, is that for this coming year? That was last year. What, will that go down this year if all of these municipal requests get approved?
Yeah.
How much will it shrink?
Should go down to 48,000.
Okay, so you're hopefully, if you can get this, that can grow and you can extend the benefits from it. Okay.
Right.
Okay. Well, obviously this is informational for our budget hearings coming up. Does anyone else have any questions? I appreciate, Mike?
The information that's been shared with you, would that be something that we could put on the website so other citizens could see it?
Does that work with you?
Or modify it so it would be meaningful to them?
I think that's a great idea, yeah.
Yeah. It's
It's only 5 or 6 pages, it'd be easy to put on as a slide type presentation.
Give it to Mel and Mel will forward it to the,
Mel's got
I have it.
Mel's
I
got
have, I have many versions, as a matter of fact. I will,
give
Yeah.
me
send
the one you want on the
last-
website.
That's a great idea. Yep. Anybody else, any other questions? Thank you. Great. Okay, Vermont Kids Against Tobacco. Thanks for coming. Thanks for using your advocacy to make changes in the world. Jay, do you want to introduce the kids? Tell us what you'd like to present tonight?
Yes, so each of the students is going to present a short piece. We've been working with Mel, he's come to school a couple times, and educated them about how ordinances work and all those sorts of things. And so we're at that point where we'd like to present the information that we've gathered to the city council, and hopefully you'd be willing to move forward on an ordinance related to smoke-free parks.
Okay.
So with that, I think we'll turn it over to the students. And
Okay.
I think they're going to stand over there just for camera's sake and all of that.
Hi, I'm Zoe Parker from Addison. We are all 8th grade students at Vergennes Middle School and members of Vergennes Kids Against Tobacco. Our group is focused on preventing kids from smoking and participating in other risky behaviors, like doing drugs and drinking alcohol. Students who smoke are many times more likely to do other things that are dangerous and or against the law, so we don't want kids to even start smoking. Our group has been meeting with Mel Hawley and working with Melanie Clark to develop a proposal for the Vergennes City Council. It is our hope that you, the City Council, can pass a city ordinance to establish outdoor smoking-free zones at the City Green and pool recreation area next to Vergennes Union Elementary School. We'd like to tell you why we think this is important.
Hi, I'm Lexi from Ferrisburg.
I'm Devin from Vergennes.
Creating outdoor smoke-free areas in the city is important to us for a number of reasons.
Number one, smoking is smelly and gross.
Children who are exposed to secondhand smoke are more greatly affected than adults.
Secondhand smoke is not healthy for anyone.
If there is an event on the city green, smoking bothers everyone and makes it hard to enjoy the event.
People throw cigarette butts on the ground, which is, it makes Vergennes look very bad.
Being exposed to smoking could be a bad influence on non-smokers, especially those who are young and impressionable.
Secondhand smoke is a form of air pollution.
We want to influence young people not to smoke, and we believe this smoke-free ordinance will help.
Hi, I'm Caroline Johnston from Addison, and we contacted several cities and towns in Vermont who already had outdoor smoke-free ordinances in order to find out how they are working. We only heard back from a few, but the feedback was positive. The Enosburg Falls Village manager, John, said that enforcement is challenging because they don't have their own police officers, yet he has noticed a significant improvement. It has reduced the amount of smoking in their parks, and there are less cigarette butts on the ground. He said there's no way to eliminate all smoking, but people are more receptive when ordinary citizens tell them about the smoke-free ordinance. The town clerk from the town and village of Ludlow said that she has not heard of any problems related to the smoke-free ordinance. Chief Billings in Ludlow stated that it wasn't a major problem before the ordinance, but now it's nice that people can enjoy the park without having to worry about cigarette smoke as much. Public pressure seems to be the best form of enforcement, as they haven't had to issue a ticket in quite some time.
Chief Merkel has told us that he supports an outdoor smoke-free ordinance in Vergennes. Also, Jane Spencer at the Bixby Library said that the library board established a smoke-free policy 10 years ago in 2003. This then states that there is no smoking in the library or on its grounds. They would like to do a better job enforcing the policy, and this would work perfectly with their ordinance.
Hi, I'm Emily Stone from Ferrisburg. What these benefits of an outdoor smoke-free ordinance in Vergennes are less secondhand smoke, a greener Vergennes, everyone can enjoy the parks and events without having to smell cigarette smoke. There are less cigarette butts on the ground, so Vergennes can look better. The city sends a positive message to influence the young people of Vergennes not to even start smoking.
As you have heard, there are many reasons to establish an outdoor smoke-free ordinance. Hopefully you understand why creating smoke-free outdoor areas in Vergennes, specifically the city green and the pool recreation area, is important to us and many other people. Thank you for allowing us the time to present at your meeting and for considering our proposal. We are happy to answer any of the questions if you guys have any.
Thank you. So your proposal would recommend that we investigate an ordinance that would create smoke-free environments at the city park in the center of town and the area around the municipal swimming pool by the elementary school. Those are the two areas that you're looking at currently. Okay. What, Mel, does it take to investigate this in terms of it would be added as an ordinance for the city of Vergennes?
Yeah, it would, we would have to adopt an ordinance, either a standalone ordinance or there is a chapter on parks, and so it may be a new section in that ordinance. One of the things that municipalities have to do now when adopting an ordinance is to first adopt it as whether or not it's a civil or criminal ordinance. And I've talked to the high school students, and they agree that this does not deserve someone ending up with a record. But there should be a fine, and
Yep.
I can tell you that there was not consensus amongst the high school students as to what the fine might be for this offense, because I think some of them wanted it to be not too high, but others wanted it to hurt, so that it. But I think they really all agree that that from an enforcement standpoint, the real key is education and getting people to understand what the rules are, because I can't imagine that the area would be coated with no smoking signs, and so it would be enforced by any time that there's an event. That's something that would be announced at the start. So one of the things that happened, I never really thought about it, but when as many of you know, there's been a law in the books relative to school property that there is no alcohol, tobacco on school property. That's been the law in Vermont for probably a couple of decades, and that law was applicable to our recreation areas, the swimming pool, tennis courts, skate park, because it was school property leased to the city of Vergennes. Now, when the city took over ownership of that land in 2010, it's no longer school property, and legally somebody could light up at the swimming pool. And so I really appreciate them bringing that to our attention, because I clearly that inside of the confines of that pool, to me, should be smoke free.
Yeah. Joe, question.
Mel, the point that you made about fines is the exact question I had. I wonder if any of the communities that you contacted, what their enforcement policy was and whether or not they had fines attached to their ordinance.
Yeah, they didn't. I know I forwarded 6 different ordinances to Mel from the different communities we tried to contact. And I don't remember that any of those, a few of them specified actual amounts, and I think it was anywhere from $50 to $200, I think. But that was, first time it was $50, second time might be $100, third time might be, so it went up with each offense.
Like Mel said, that people the kids in the high school wanted to have a feeling on them. Like, we also want them to realize that it is, if it does happen, that it is they need to follow it, and that if it does hurt them, then they'll realize more and more that they can't do it. So if there is a fine, that they'll feel it more than if there wasn't.
Okay, good. Any other questions on the board? Well, my feeling is, I think that it's a great opportunity to consider it, to discuss it. I don't think that we probably have enough information to make a motion and accept it tonight, but I think that I'd like to investigate it further, talk to some other communities, about fines, talk to the chief about enforcement. But I'm frankly very impressed with what you guys have done, and would like to thank you for bringing it to our attention. And I think that what we will do is keep you in the loop. Maybe even if we have a committee to look at it, to maybe have a couple of you be members of that, if that would be helpful. I think we'd like your input. And this will probably take a little bit of time just to work its way through and make sure that whatever ordinance we do have and we vote on, that everybody agrees that it's reasonable and practical for the citizens of Vergennes. But how does that sound to anyone here? Does that make sense?
It's fine.
Okay.
The only thing is that if we're gonna have a committee or we're working on it, I think we should work on it relatively soon, because we're entering prime time of smokers in parks during the summer. So it would be good to have something in place if we're gonna put something in place.
I think that's fine. I think we can certainly put something together quickly and at least bring some information back and have a discussion of that information and then decide how to proceed.
I think some of the legwork's been done because of the ordinances that I forwarded to Mel and having talked to the chief and those sorts of things. So hopefully that can allow you to speed things up.
Yeah, you don't need to reinvent the wheel,
Right,
obviously.
exactly,
We can look at those ordinances, customize them to what we want and then discuss the fines and so on. But I think that makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
My only concern is we have seniors still in Vergennes here, and you're not gonna break their habits,
Yeah,
especially when you got the vets. You know, and it's hard to tell them to, when they
Yep.
go to the park and sit down, and then they have a cigarette, that all of a sudden they can't go there anymore.
Yep,
You know,
there
that's-
certainly would be sensitive issues there,
Yes,
and I
it would.
totally understand that, yeah, yeah. But I think it's something that is becoming more and more common, and it's worth discussing and, you know, looking at it. Great, thank you so much, and,
One other piece that I did want to make the council aware of is Melanie Clark does have some money through her tobacco funds to help with signage.
okay,
Those funds end June 30th, so that would be another piece just to keep in mind.
okay,
I don't remember the exact amount. I want to say maybe $500 to $750 total
Yep.
that she could contribute to help the city, you know, because obviously that will cost some money. So.
great, okay, good, thank you, Jay.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. We will be in touch with you, and if we wanna get together with some of the kids, we can do that, okay?
Do you think it's something that will come up at the next city council meeting, or there will be a committee meeting between now and then?
It'll definitely be I think we can bring it back in a couple of weeks, and if we can get 3 or 4 of us that would like to work on that, maybe Mel and I can start looking at some of the things. Get a couple.
I'll work with you.
Joe will help, okay? And Ziggy, yeah, we probably can, in which case, if we have a group, I can let you know, and we can try and set up a time when we can all, you know, get together and discuss it. Okay? Good, thank you so much. Citizens' comments, anyone here that is not on the agenda? No? Okay. Election of senior alderman. We now have a full board here.
Thanks, Dan. Take care.
Thanks, guys. And we need to have a senior alderman who is able to take over the position, the mayor's position in the event of catastrophe, or whatever we'll call it.
We'll call it a catastrophe.
A catastrophe. Randy Ouellette has been senior alderman for how many years?
6, I believe.
Okay. And so we just need to appoint
4, excuse me, that's 4.
4, okay.
Yes.
We need to appoint someone for this next year to hold that position. Is there any discussion? Anyone have a nomination to make?
I'll nominate Randall Ouellette.
Okay. Any other nominations?
I guess it's up to you, excuse me, if you're happy with him, you are the mayor, you know, so.
Well, I mean, but if I'm not here, then I shouldn't be
That's right.
voting, you know,
Well,
so it's
that's what
like.
I mean. So if you're happy.
If there are no other nominations, there's a nomination. Is there a second?
I seconded it.
Second, okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Well, that's one less plaque I have to order.
There you go.
Saved you some money.
Just saved
Good.
$3.50, right?
Awesome.
I'm glad I could help, Mel.
Okay, now we're to the water tower policy, which we looked at 2 weeks ago. It was tabled briefly because we had some discussions about a little bit of the verbiage. And Mel and I talked about it and decided that the sentence in question, which had to do with leveraging the money for sidewalk improvements, really didn't need to be where it was located. And it would make sense just to delete that sentence.
It's already stated in number 4 under criteria.
Yep, and so just the use of the fund revenue on page 1 now discusses that the expenditures can be used for capital improvements of city-owned facilities or for the purpose of economic development. And then the capital improvements is defined, and economic development is defined as well. And then the use of the funds, the criteria for the allocation is on page 2, and those did not change any. So I think it's much cleaner. It allows some flexibility where necessary, but it makes us consider where the money's gonna go and that it's gonna be spent wisely over the long term for the city. So,
I'll make the motion that we appoint, or I guess it wouldn't be appoint, we enact on this water tower fund as written, policy as written.
okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any other discussion?
Well,
Rennie?
When I was looking at it, the copy that we had is different than the copy that.
The copy that you had in the packet was the same as 2 weeks ago.
Right.
In your packet.
But it's different than this
Yeah,
one.
the two changes in what I handed out tonight, one was just simply relative to the definition of a capital improvement. It was listed, it was defined by using a list of 3 items. the third item relative to the leveraging of funds really isn't really a definition. And like I said, it's already over under criteria number 4, expenditures shall be leveraged with additional fund sources whenever possible. So was feeling that was already covered elsewhere. So we just we basically just combined those into a simpler one-sentence definition. The other change on the second page, it's more of an accounting thing. The paragraph that you had been working on in the past made reference to a separate fund. And let me just tell you, every time that we have a separate fund, there's additional auditing expense associated with a separate fund. And so what I've suggested here is to not create a separate fund, but however, create a reserve account within that water tower fund. The work that Joan will have to do to keep track of this is really no different whether or not it's a separate fund or in a reserve. It would be just itemized, so it would show up in our financial statements, both the water tower fund and the continuation reserve in that same fund. The other thing, just to be clear about and I didn't change this, but I wanted just to make sure that everybody understood the second sentence in that paragraph. It says that the reserve fund will be used to continue to benefit the community after the annual income of the water tower is substantially diminished by the termination of the current or future leases. The point is that it's as this reserve fund accumulates, it's not as though and as the leases are not renewed, it's not that you have to wait for the initial reserve to go to 0 before you can access the continuation fund. It's so that, as those revenues go down, it ends up, the continuation fund can augment that lower annual revenue.
And we hope that those leases stay in effect long after we're gone off this board. So that's the hope. Any other questions? Joe?
I know as far as the paragraph that describes the income, I know I've been through this, so forgive me for asking questions again, to clarify, but are these not, especially the last sentence, the total income for the 10-year period, fiscal year 2013 to 2022 is, $1 million, et cetera. Is that a number firm? Is that a guaranteed number, or should?
It is a firm number on a spreadsheet.
Right.
If I really believe there's 4 leases, there's 4 companies. All of the leases are in essence at this point, I won't bore you with all the history, but they're basically 5-year leases. They're really a 5-year lease with multiple 5-year renewals. Okay? And so if you remember that color chart that I've given you from time to time as to how that accumulates,
right.
That is true. And when you get in that 10-year period,
That's the best of all possible worlds.
So I guess that was my understanding, so I just wanted to, and I understand this is an explanation paragraph, it's not any kind of firm, but I wonder if some statement should be applied at the end of that sentence stating, provided all leases are continually renewed or something like that.
Well,
it's the sentence before, with continued renewal of all leases, the income will continue to rise to. So I think the point you're making, Joe, is the period at the end of 2024. Right. Maybe it should be a semicolon.
Right. Or something.
Okay, and that's fine.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, that would be ideal, and the investigation that I made into how those towers are working and so on, I don't anticipate anything happening in at least a decade.
I just don't want, and I understand this is not a guarantee, this paragraph does not mean this is a guarantee.
Yeah.
It's just an explanation, but just to clarify that, I think that punctuation change makes sense.
That's great, okay. We can do that. Rennie?
Yeah, it's just an organizational change that I would suggest, adding a sentence or to a sentence the first sentence there where it says the fund policy requires that expenditures be used for capital improvements of city-owned facilities or for purpose of economic development, I would suggest that it would continue and say, which meet one or more of the following criteria. Then list the four, maybe you only need three, but list the four criteria that are on the second page in that spot. And then you have the two definitions that follow. It's just reorganizing it. It's taking what's in the back page
Yeah.
and putting it together with the policy statement that started on the first page.
So it's just that the criteria as follows, 1 through 4.
Yeah, and I don't know, I questioned whether the one that says expenditures shall promote economic development whether the city is needed only because we already said that one of the purposes of the money is economic development, but that's a question mark.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which, number 3?
You would take
Yeah,
this off
number
because
3.
we've already got it stated here under
Gotcha,
use.
yeah.
Okay.
So it's just reorganizing it,
It tightens it up a bit.
And
Yeah.
it's just adding that to that first line, which meet one or more of the following criteria.
Okay.
And then,
Did you get that, Joan?
Yeah.
Okay.
I have a question.
Ziggy?
Number 4, where expenditures shall be leveraged with additional fund sources whenever possible. Can you explain a little more with how that would work?
If we get a downtown streetscape improvement grant and it needs a match, you know, like the sidewalk improvements that we've been doing, there's a V-Trans fund of 50%. The city pays 25 and the property owner pays 25. This could fund the city's 25%, like it already has been doing for 10 years.
So that's nothing changed then?
No,
All right.
no.
Yeah,
If we can take our money and get more money as a result of that, we wanna try and do that.
All right,
But it doesn't have to happen.
okay.
Yeah, I would hope, Zig, that let's say that there was a project that was desired, all right? But the grant cycle was 10 months later, all right? I would hope that we wouldn't do that project until
The grant's
there.
until the next cycle of
If we know
grants.
that opportunity.
Or
will
I
present
should
itself.
say, that would be this criteria would be used as a reason to not do
Not
that
to do it.
project now.
Okay. That's why I was asking.
And
Not
that
to
would,
go
and that would come
ahead.
before the entire board for discussion and
Alright.
decide if we wanna do it or not based on the circumstance. Anybody else? I think that change makes sense, Rennie. I think that, are you okay with that?
Yeah.
Okay. Any other discussion?
No.
All in favor?
Aye.
Excellent, thank you, that's good. Okay. Police Station Committee Report, who's speaking? Rennie, are you speaking
Yes,
first?
I guess it's me in the beginning, anyhow. We did have a meeting last week, and we had our new member, Jerry, join us. And we reviewed the plans that had already been somewhat altered. We went down through Jerry's list. He had a lot of good questions, and hopefully they all got answered. There were some suggested revisions, which are, I think, pretty good ones. Mel sent me some of these. Like moving the booking room so it has direct access to the Sally Port and changing around the orientation of the holding cells. Ziggy had recommended that because it would be safer for the officers because it's a direct, right from the Sally Port, right to the booking room and to the holding cells. So we don't have a redraw of that shows that, but that's one of the things that was a change. Also, there was a feeling that the chief's office could be downsized a little bit, and so that we can also make. Did we have any other ones, Mel, that you can recall?
Something about the door, where the office is.
Well, one of the things that they probably have already done here was double check on all door swings, so that if you had a room that was for storage, some of them, the doors actually swung in, and it was just that kind of, that magnifying glass review really hadn't been done for a while, but I had caught a few, like for instance, cold storage, that door used to swing in, and anytime you have a small room with a door swinging in, is you lose a third of your space
Yep.
to the door, all right? So, but also there's rules about doors, so you can't just, you can't just make every door swing out. Some doors have to swing in, and the distance from the wall to the door has to be 18 inches, and so there's some rules that apply. So that was to gain some additional usable space. We, George and I have tried to work on that. As Rennie says, the holding cell booking, the Sallyport holding cell booking is really a cluster of operation, all right? And it needs to be properly set up, and we think that can be done, even if you have to do a wholesale exchange of the evidence room to the booking room. You may have to flop that completely over. And I could tell you one of the things that I have to send myself away from the table and back to the desk, and that's, I'm not an architect. I guess I want to be one, because you can't help but grab that Sharpie and your tracing paper and start going to work. So I just have to tell myself to let Chris Huston deal with that stuff.
Let the expert
That's
do it.
right.
Stop playing around.
I can't do it very efficiently. So, but it doesn't change the square. It doesn't change the square footage. I will tell you that we did talk a little bit about whether or not the building could be just ever so slightly smaller. But what we really don't want to do is end up with a design that shoehorns the police department in there. And but I can tell you, if we can get another 2 feet out of the middle of this thing, we'll take it out. But
Okay, good.
But you can see the comparison here, that this building has measurably reduced from what was submitted to the voters on town meeting day.
So when do you think we will have a final floor plan that could go on the website, could go into a mailing of some sort? Is that something that'll happen in a couple of weeks?
I think that it can go on the website. There's no problem sending this to the website, I mean, it's
more about the gross building area than it is a few petitions
Right,
getting.
because there may even be more changes as we get closer to the hopefully we get closer to the construction phase, because these walls can be moved around.
Yeah.
If we find that there's another configuration that works better. So it just be what is showing for now. It might be slightly different than that when we actually end up in construction. You also have in front of you a proposed mailer that we want to do. We didn't discuss as to whether we were going to do that before the informational meeting or after.
I would say we do it before, then that way people could bring it with them and say.
If it's before, then we should put on it that when the informational meeting occurs.
Yep.
The other thing is that if all of you would look at it, not necessarily having to do it tonight, but look at it critically to see whether we've included the kinds of things that people want to know about. As a matter of fact, we probably should hand this to somebody that has absolutely nothing to do with it. And see if they understand what we're talking about, to make sure that it's understandable to the general public. Because the intention of this piece is to show that we have reduced the size of the original design, come up with a smaller, compact design that costs less money, and can still meet the needs. So that's the intention of this.
One of the things that might help this is to also not just look at the needs of the department, but also the needs of the community in a more of a macro sense, and say, that well-functioning police department and facility, you know, keeps crime down, increases public safety and well-being, keeps real estate values stable or increasing, and that the way things are going across the country, you know, this is something that we can do that's proactive, that people really should have, and that, you know, it's a cost of doing business if you expect your community to remain desirable.
So you're thinking that we should add things
yeah,
talking about that in
a little bit, yeah, just like a paragraph,
Yeah,
but just something that broadens the scope a little bit. And I mean, I'd be happy to put something together just to get it to you, but I'm not sure how, you know, is this gonna fold over? What's the other there might be a part of it, a place to put it somewhere else.
Well, before we did use a fold over, I can tell you there's certainly is, we had the police do some of the mailing, work last time. There's absolutely not a problem with turning this into a 2-page information sheet and putting it in an envelope. All right, so I don't, you know, one of the things that we learned that the other night was how we know what a juvenile room is, or we know what the definition of that, but the public may not know what that means,
Right,
and
just like
why
SAG.
it's located where. And so we thought about including a little more description of what rooms were for. Like, for instance, Sallyport. We know what a Sallyport is, but
I didn't until about 10 years ago.
Lots of people, they read it, they really don't have any idea what it is.
Good. Well, I mean,
But timing wise, I mean, really, if we wanna get this out, I mean, you know, if it's gonna be through committee, Rennie, I think your committee really needs to work on Monday or somebody. I mean, this thing needs to go out by.
Well, I think we could do it by just distributing it by email. I think that would probably be sufficient.
well, I'll just send you,
You know.
some text and you can put it wherever you want. If that-
And do it that way, committee.
Yeah, cause it'd be good for this really to go out.
That's the fastest way. I mean, all we have to do is read it and make any comments that we want and get that out, particularly if we want to get it out prior to the informational meeting, because there's not much time left.
2 weeks. That's it.
Really? 3.
No,
Well,
not for the meeting. The meeting is the 7th.
Informational meeting, the 7th.
Yeah, see, I think you wanna be able to get this out next Wednesday.
Yeah.
I'm gonna say at the latest, really.
Can you get it printed that fast?
Yeah, yeah.
Any other questions? Joe, do you have a question?
Just, as far as this box says need, I mean, we don't need a lack of juvenile detention area, we don't need I mean, maybe just a change in wording, I don't know. Problems or.
Say that again?
Issues. Well, the first box says need.
Oh,
Right.
I see.
And what we need is a new station. We don't need all these things that's listed there. I mean, that may be semantics, but does that make sense? Current issue.
There might be a stronger way to portray that need.
Right.
But on the other hand, I don't want to start rewriting this whole thing either.
No, we don't need to rewrite the whole box, just the word at the top.
Can we change that from need to deficiencies?
Or-
These are our
Well,
deficiencies?
yeah, I think that's the whole,
I
the
understand.
lack of, we don't need to write lack of, need, interview space for,
Right.
you know, I mean, I think that the title might be okay.
When you do, when you say it in that manner, it comes across negative, Randy. I'm not trying to, but, so you want a positive, I suggest a regular, like our paper used to be, City Voice, a 4-fold, fold it in half, get a lot more information, and it's, you should, in some cases, put the word required. If you're building a new station,
So,
this is the standards that are required.
what are you saying?
The juvenile cell is a requirement if you're going to have holding cells. You gotta be able, and you have to have segregation distance between those.
Yeah, because there's a note about meets minimum standards for contemporary police facility, but we need to know what those minimum requirements are. That would help, I think, yes. Anybody else? Do you wanna just kind of, we can brainstorm and try and put something together and then meet Monday and
Yeah,
hone it, edit it, and get it to the printer on Tuesday?
Yeah, and I think just, distributing it by email, just so that everybody can see what it is, and maybe they have a suggestion, but then go with it.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, a lot of people already get the sense, having seen the first building, it's not like it's brand new to them, so, okay. Is that it for the police station committee report?
I think so, unless there are
Okay.
questions.
Recreation committee, Joe, I know you met a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, we met, I think it was just prior to the last, city council meeting, it was the first, or the date was the 5th of April. There's really nothing to report. I spoke with some members who were, who had taken the task of maybe just kind of doing an informal poll of people who were parents of toddlers, maybe getting some ideas, and they've done a little bit of that. And Mel, I don't know, last meeting is, we approved a payment to David Raphael to develop a plan. I don't know if that's been.
I've certainly communicated with David, he's got the go-ahead.
Yep.
But I don't know, I haven't seen any product or.
So there's really not much progress, I guess, since the last,
Okay.
and everything else, I guess I see there's an agenda item about the forum, so.
Right, and I did send him a PDF of the site, we did have that in our files from a old project that occurred down there.
Right,
So
right,
he's
right.
got a base map that he can work with, it's all to scale. But I think really he's in need of feedback from parents.
The other issue, I received an email from Mel that you had at least sent out a kind of a missive to the engineer about maybe looking at designs for a boardwalk over the wetland that approach the rec path. I don't know if there's any progress on that at all.
Well, that is, the response that I got from Otter Creek is they don't do that kind of work, right? But I did talk to Brent at some length, and what I'd like to do is maybe at our next meeting, I would like to go to that site again. I mean, I know the committee went early on, Joe, there was a site visit. I'd like to go back to that site and take a look at access again. And I know we have a meeting for
3rd of
a
May.
week from Friday.
Mhm.
And I don't want to control your agenda that much, but I would like an on-site meeting down there.
Well,
I
we
really-
plan on
really
just
would.
meeting, we could plan on meeting maybe at the McDonough Memorial and walking across there.
Sure,
Okay.
yeah.
Ready?
Yeah, in some of this work, I don't know whether you've already thought of it, but don't hesitate to contact the Youth Conservation Corps, because even though the rail trail never got finished, a good part of what was done on the rail trail was done by them. They built all the bridges that are already built there. And if you can, you have to apply ahead of time, and it's a grant really that says these kids can go for X amount of weeks doing the work, but it's free to the community, and they do a really good job. So some of these things in the recreation area, if they need to be built like the planked walkway through.
What about the high school boys? It's over there, high school, they have projects once in a while, and maybe they would get involved.
So how would I go about doing it? Just, contact the headquarters up there in Richmond or whatever?
Their headquarters, and I can't remember where it is.
It's in the Monitor Barn there in Richmond.
It's in
Yeah.
that big barn, yeah.
Route 2,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, and you can talk to them about, availability and the application for it and so on. I don't know how backed up they are. Some years they're really backed up, other times they're really looking for projects.
Even golf course, they're
Good.
always
Anything else on the recreation committee?
That's it for me.
Okay, awesome. Taxicab operator licenses. Apparently these are approved on an annual basis.
Yes, they expire April 30th.
Okay. So Joan handed me applications for a license to operate a taxi. There are 3 individual drivers, all working for Small City Taxi. And Joan has reviewed them, and there's a description of where they live, their mailing address, place of birth, valid driver's license, and so on and so forth. I'm not sure how much detail we need to go in here, anything that you feel we need to discuss, or shall I just name them off?
Yeah, you can name them. Only one of them is new, and that would be
Okay.
Dana Silbrook.
Okay.
He's a new driver. The other 2 we have previously
Okay.
licensed. We do have a certificate of insurance for the
Okay.
vehicles they're operating, and each one just gets issued their own license.
Okay.
And fees have been paid at City Hall.
Okay.
And I've also found out that some of these times, like over at the senior housing when they need to be picked up, that if there's certain ones they pick up all the time, they hardly charge them anything.
Oh, really?
They just,
Wow, that's
yeah.
nice. Good. So they all will be doing business as Vermont, or Small City Taxi. The first one is Dana S. Phillips. Address is 18 2nd Street, Vergennes. He has held a valid driver's license for 36 years. Second is Josh Detman. Address is 2205 Nortontown Road in Addison. And he has held a valid driver's license for 4 years, and this is not his first year. And then the last is Rick, is it Lawyer?
Yeah, that's the one.
He's the owner.
P.O. Box 111, Ferrisburg, Vermont, held a driver's license for 24 years. And we have copies of the driver's license and certificate of insurance. So if there's a motion to issue the licenses for these 3 drivers, DBA Small City Taxi. Motion. Lowell seconds. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Pass those back to Joan. Outdoor seating arrangements. Mel talked to me the other day about the application for this, and he had some thoughts about making some revisions to it, and he had some big ideas, and then after consideration, changed his mind and had a small idea. So I will let him discuss what the change is, and then we have the licenses here, right, that we can.
Well, I haven't, these are their 2012.
Oh, okay.
First off, let me just go over, the
change.
The change, and that is, the former agreements made reference to a requirement of the property owner to contact us in writing by December 31st of their interest to renew. And they're too busy cooking food, so no one ever made that deal. And to me, these licenses really should and can be handled at the same time the city council is acting on the liquor license, entertainment permits, tobacco licenses, all at the same time. So in almost a year, you will see 5 other businesses on that list for action. So specifically what I'm looking for tonight, Bill, is for council approval for me to issue licenses for the renewal of 4 businesses. There is no change in their site plan, and the 4 businesses being Luigi's Italian Specialty, Black Sheep Bistro, 3 Squares, and Vergennes Laundry. There's a new license that has been requested, and I would seek for approval to issue that license, and that's for the Park Squeeze. There's an area up on the top of their handicap access area. It's smaller than 3 Squares, but it's the same principle of that. And so about 3/4 of that platform towards the Ryan block would be their site plan.
There were 2 tables there today.
There you go. So anyway, they need that ASAP.
Yeah. No one was sitting in them though, so that's good.
Okay.
So would you like a motion to accept
To authorize those 5 licenses.
Okay, with the edits as discussed?
Yeah.
I got a question.
Yeah.
Was the antidote wasn't part of those?
They're not within the city right of way. So
Okay.
these licenses are issued because they're within the street right of way.
Okay, thank you for the clarification.
Okay.
I
will make that motion.
I'll second it.
Motion made, seconded to accept the agreements for the 5 parties. Discussion? Joe?
Do adjoining properties owners or businesses have access to these plans ahead of time so that we don't run into the conflicts that we did last year? Even though I know it really these are the same plans.
Do they have?
I mean, once this is
They have
approved-
access, but there isn't a notice, there's no notice to abutting property owners, if you will.
Right. So I would just assume that since it's the same as last year, that hopefully we won't have any conflicts.
Shouldn't, right.
The amended, this is gonna be the amended plan for the
Vergennes
laundry.
That's correct.
Right, okay.
There's now a city park bench in front of the shoe store.
Or two.
Or 2, actually,
Right.
yeah. So there is seating there, just not their seating there, so.
You know, one of the things relative to Vergennes Laundry, you will see a slight difference in that service area because of their outside alcohol consumption permit. So there'll be a similar, confined area, if you will.
And
for
similar
that.
to Randy's question, the outdoor seating for the black sheep, apparently that's not in the right of way, so.
Yeah, I said black sheep.
Oh, you did, I'm
Yep,
sorry,
I said black
I
sheep.
missed that, I'm sorry. Right, but I guess I didn't hear black
Yeah.
sheep, so I'm sorry about that, I must have just missed that.
Any other questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Great, okay. Moving on. I'm not sure, some of you may have gotten an email from me a week ago or not. There has been some discussion among various people about trying to, kind of invigorate some excitement about, downtown and the parks and so on, and trying to think about a way to do it, and also get some people that have volunteered, that don't know other people or organizations that haven't worked together necessarily. And so I put together kind of an outline and sent it to some of the parties I already spoken to or had spoken to me about doing something, and I think we're looking at a date of May 22nd, and it's a Wednesday evening. And the intention of it is we started talking about downtown revitalization and so on, and then it kind of morphed into something that was more downtown and recreation oriented. And the plan is to have it at the Opera House, and they're willing to host this event, and to have like just a half an hour of a meet and greet, social time, and break the people there up into 3 to 4 groups. And I'm hoping there might be 10 people per group, maybe more, maybe less. It depends how many people show up. And there would be 4 groups, maybe 3, depending on how the Recreation Committee wants to proceed with this. But one would be, if they want to include this, it would be a discussion of the toddler park. If the design of the equipment and the plan is further along, we may delete that because we don't really want to gum up the works if it's moving smoothly and if we have enough consensus as to what that should look like. Another one would have to do with downtown pedestrian improvements in safety and cleanliness and so on downtown. A lot of that would be taken from the Middlebury College plan that we saw a few weeks ago and the original downtown revitalization plan. Just talking about, what changes could we make, prioritize them, is it gonna take some money, and how is it gonna be funded? And just relooking at some of those things in terms of, pedestrian signage, crosswalks, bulb outs, plantings, that sort of thing. The third would be a bicycle-friendly community discussion, which the Recreation Committee has already started. Doug Todd, who's on that committee, is very excited about that, and I've spoken to Greg Edwards, who lives on McDonough Drive, and he knows lots of people in that biking community and is more than happy to help facilitate a discussion about that. And we had some discussions with, who's the gentleman that owns the bike shop? Tim?
Yeah, Tim Matthews.
Tim Matthews, and he's wants to be involved. It's about making Vergennes more bicycle friendly, more bike racks in specific locations, accessing the downtown and the amenities from various locations that might be out of town. And again, a brainstorming session and some ideas and maybe a plan that, you know, we could look at that might be 5 years down the road or longer. And then the last one would just be for Otter Creek Basin improvements. We have the existing park down by Matt Daniels, which is pretty well developed and so on. We have the opposite side of the river, which could use some additional cleaning up or development potentially. There's a lot of space there. There are some picnic tables. We have signage down there that we could use to market a lot of the businesses. Probably could be upgraded. And then the city and some volunteers have cleared a lot of the other area on the east side of the creek now, and we need to determine what should happen there. You know, there's a walking path, the stairs are done. What should happen there? You know, is it gonna be just for walking, for dogs? Do we want picnic tables down there? We wanna put some signage up on Main Street so people know that it's there and they can actually access it. So each of these groups would meet for about a half an hour, talk about it, maybe a little bit longer, and then all four groups would offer up a summary of what their discussion was and their conclusion. So the whole thing would only be about an hour and a half, 2 hours max, but come out with some ideas that hopefully we can incorporate in upcoming budgets, and get ideas to where we want to go in a few years. So you know, I think I'm working on some facilitators, some moderators, and then once we all agree on this, you know, it'll go public. It hasn't gone public yet because we didn't have an exact date. But
What
you know,
time would it be?
probably 7 to 9 on a Wednesday evening. We looked at a Wednesday or Thursday. Thursday's not good because it's golf league, men's league. So that was requested it not be on a Thursday. So. You know, so that by the next meeting, this will all be put together and it'll be out, you know, it'll go public, it'll go on the website, it'll go Front Porch Forum, and, you know, if we can get 40 people there, that'd be awesome. Mel, you're up. City Manager's Report. Yeah, Rennie?
I was gonna mention, when you mentioned about the bikes, and you may have already checked on this, but a resource is the Champlain Bikeways, which is a member of the byways group, and we're on a byway, and anything that has to do with bikes and bike groups and promoting that, they are very active.
I think Greg knows someone on that, and he
Okay.
wants to bring them in on this.
Okay.
Because he sent me an email.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a fabulous group to have involved.
Just remind the council, we had a conversation with the owner of Sojourn, and I don't remember her name, up in Charlotte, about giving us some ideas about incorporating Vergennes, making it more accessible to these bike tours that use our roadways and our bikeways and so forth. I'm very good with names.
Rand is her last name.
Right.
Is that awful?
I want to say
Can't remember
Susan
first
Rand.
name.
Susan Rand.
Susan Rand.
Okay, anybody have a discussion
Names.
on that? Any
Worst.
questions? We'll proceed on that. Mel, you're up.
Yeah, I'm gonna just, we took solar off, but I'm gonna talk about solar for just a second. We put the project on, the smaller project on hold momentarily, only because I got a telephone call from Bob McNary, because the Ferrisburg plan has been pulled. They've pulled a plug on that, and the reason why, as I understand it, that they pulled a plug on it is that it's one of two things or both. One is that the investors really do not like to have multiple entities involved with a project, and of course this was a high school, Ferrisburg Central and Ferrisburg Town. The other is that because these facilities can generate more than the 750,000 kilowatts in a year, that they really feel that they need consumption to the in the realm of 1 million kilowatts a year, and it actually makes some sense because if it does generate 1 million, I mean, I think the clouds are still going to show up in the sky in Vermont in October, November, and December. But if this thing did produce 1 million kilowatts, and if you don't have that much consumption going on, then you actually could lose money from a cash flow standpoint because you aren't consuming enough actual electricity to use the credit against what's generated at the facility. So it's those two things. So as soon as I heard about that from Bob, I called Chad and I said, well, if you need $1 million, we can put the high school and the wastewater treatment plant together to make that $1 million. And that way the city would get all of its, the sewer plant, because remember that the 150 kW would only generate about 200,000, and we use 350 at the wastewater treatment plant. So I thought, well, if we could possibly team up with the high school, that would get us to the $1 million. So I offered that up as being an option, and that has been rejected because they just don't like the idea of multiple benefactors, if you will. So that's out, and we're back on the $4,100 a year savings, the 140 kW, and I sent off the mailing labels to Chad today of all of the abutters. Christine, you're gonna get one of these, cause they told me that even if you're on the other side of the river, you're still considered an abutter. So anyway, Chad will be filing that with the Public Service Board, I'm gonna say very soon, and the agreement, I have the agreement, and we'll get remember the council authorized a letter of intent is what we did. The agreement has been drafted, and I'll get that to the council in the next packet. So that's that. Biosolids, the state did finally approve a landowner agreement for our biosolids up on the piece of property, just like what you did, Rennie, before. And so that, I have 4 originals on my desk. I've signed it. The farmer, Ray Brands, has signed it, and so they just need to go back to Obahowski. I should have brought him with me, Mike, and you could save me a stamp. So anyway, and the way that it's set up is that the time period we battled with it quite a bit because they were always talking about 5 years, and of course, by the time you finally get your permit, if you give you a 5-year landowner agreement, and it takes the state a year and a half to process your application, then really you only got a 3.5-year permit. So the way we've got it structured now is the 5 years. It picks up from May 12th, 2012, which was when our last landowner agreement expired, and so it starts from that date, and it moves forward to the end of a 5-year period, of which starts at the date that the permit is issued. So we actually end up with 5 years, because what ended up happening, Rennie, is what we ended up with before was really a 4-year landowner agreement, because the first year we couldn't do anything with it. So anyway, that's done. Just want to let folks know, next Tuesday I'm going to be attending a workshop of interveners relative to Vermont Gas. Met briefly with Jim Ouimet. I have to go to a workshop to understand what interveners' role are. And one of the things that came out of the Public Service Board is that they're trying to group like parties, and they've grouped us with Middlebury for logical reasons, but Middlebury is very different from us because they actually have a transmission main running and a transmission main running through the town of Middlebury, and there's a gate station in Middlebury. In the case of Vergennes, I don't see, there is not a transmission main running through Vergennes. It's totally distribution lines, and the gate station for Vergennes would likely be out Moncton Road, probably east of Route 7. So
I would assume to me, I was explaining to Mike, I think personally, why did we intervene? And to me, the reason why we intervene is try to make sure that, as best we can, is that all properties have access to this. And I know that there's some that are going to be left out. All right, but certainly, some of the, like, why aren't they included? We hopefully can correct that through the process. But anyway, the paperwork is it'll grow to a milk crate very, very quickly in these things, because there's the service list is mushroomed. It's huge. The other thing just to mention, the grand list.
The only thing that we're waiting on are the utility information. We do have, I'm gonna call it preliminary from Green Mountain Power. We're still waiting on Velco. And once we get that, I've been in communication with the Board of Listers, and as soon as we get that information from the tax department, grievance day will be set. I'm gonna say it'll be sometime in the middle of May, but until we get those numbers, so.
Do you want to share with the board what we found out about Green Mountain Power?
Sure.
It's going to affect a number of communities in the state of Vermont.
Yeah, if, you know, some of you may recall this, you know, shortly after I came back to work for the city, you know, typically the utility information gets mailed out to the Board of Listers relative to the value of Green Mountain Power, Velco, and in 2010, the notice that came down showed a drop in value of hydro generation plants by, I'm gonna say 75%. It was huge. So like in the case of Green Mountain Power, their total facility, which is the hydro generating plant and the telephone poles and the distribution system, it equals $7 million. But a major chunk of it is generation, and the formula that they use doesn't have any smoothing effect in that they just take a year's worth of generation and it calculates a value. And what happened when they went into 2010 was that the wholesale value of power, I'm going to say, plummeted, and so therefore the value of a generation facility plummeted because the revenue stream isn't there. All right. Well, you know, so like one day I have a $7 million entry in the grand list, and I come to work the next day and it's $2 million. Well, $5 million in taxable property in Vergennes is a lot. All right. So myself and some others, and with the help of the League of Cities and Towns, convinced the Ways and Means Committee to freeze the valuation on utilities for 2010, 11, and 12 at the 2009 level. And that way, it gave the tax department some time to try to figure out how we're gonna do this. And I'm not so sure that they figured it out, because the report that came into my office had Green Mountain Power's value going from, what is it, Bill, 7.9 million to 6.4 million. It was a drop
or something.
Yeah, it was a drop of 1.3 or 1.4 million, all right? Which I can assure you that we did not have that many houses built in Vergennes, and then and we sure as heck didn't have that many sheds built that can come up with 1.3 or 1.4 million dollars. So it's a problem, and
actually, I was in New Haven after I saw you.
You did,
and they went from 7.2 to 6.8. They had a small reduction, so I don't know how this. It wasn't the same percentage-wise.
Yeah.
So we need to investigate this continually and see.
So I
what's
fired
going
an
on.
email off to Steve Jeffrey, and I gave him a copy of the Green Mountain Power report with a "here we go again" lead-in statement. You know, I don't know, and I sent an email off to Doug Lay, who is the contact person in the tax department that deals with utilities. You know, I don't, you know, I just can just tell you that we got a problem. So
Yeah, hopefully it'll rectify itself.
How does the Velco station get valued? Do we know how
it's done by book value? You know, it's driven by statute. They submit just like Green Mountain Power, and there's a schedule of cost. And I tell you what's weird, Rennie, I really thought that when that facility, I remember as it was built, you know, at first they weren't submitting anything, and I called up the tax department and said, you know, when somebody has a half-built house, we tax them on half a house. It's just the way that we do things, and it should work that same way with Velco. Mm-hmm. If they have a half-built substation, then we should get that value, and so I kind of called it on them, and they reluctantly agreed, and so that half of a substation went in. Then it got completed and it went in, and frankly, I thought it's like $8 million. It's $8 million or something like that. And I thought, you know, the good news is it's $8 million added to the grand list. The bad news is the book value is going to depreciate by 10% per year. And you're like, oh, and then we're going to lose it all. And it hasn't for some reason. I don't. It actually went from here to here, and then it went up a little bit again, so.
Well, they probably are making changes and improvements to it, maybe that's
Could be,
why, I don't
yeah.
know. But also, that may not be a separate entity, it may be incorporated in that larger,
Yeah, it's not part of the Green Mountain Power submission, it's a
Velco
separate
but-
submission, so, you know, it's one of the problems, for us, you know, because we have, you know, some real key, tax accounts, if you will, UTC being one, you know, Velco being another, Green Mountain Power being another, and when two of the three have this volatility, it's a problem.
it is.
So anyway, that's that
Okay.
bad news.
And one other thing, I was talking to Mel that, again, in some other communities, the department heads put together a real brief summary of what's going on. You know, 2 weeks forward and 2 weeks back, let's say. And literally in something that they can do in 5 minutes or 10 minutes that gets sent to Mel that just goes in the packet. Because I think it would be nice for us to know, you know, what they've done, so people have asked us, you know, what were they doing down here, we can tell them. And also what is going to be happening if someone says, you know, this sidewalk is horrible. I said, well, you know what, hopefully it's gonna get fixed sometime soon. And that we can at least vocalize to the public, you know, what's going on with the police department, public works, and the administration, although there's not a whole lot that, you know, you guys can write about, there might be some things.
You know, we can.
But I think it's just something that, for informational purposes, it might be good to have. But it's not something that's gonna be comprehensive, but just.
But I think we,
summary.
you know, I think we can do that, Joan. I mean, we're not talking about, I told Bill, I said, you know, I can't have Jim Larrow sitting at a computer, you know, 8 hours writing a memo to me for you, okay? But anyway, I think.
Joan would love
you
to
know,
have to spend another couple hours
Yeah,
every
right.
2 weeks doing a memo.
But I think just some, you know, just some bullet points. I mean, you know that, you know, we don't need to tell you we're mowing, you know, we're
Yeah.
mowing, all right?
Yeah.
But I mean, some of the things that you wouldn't necessarily know that we did over the last couple of weeks, you know, I mean, like in the case of Joan, it's, you know, delinquent billing on the 10th, and
Yeah.
the dog licenses are coming. It could be, I mean, really, we're talking.
Yeah, literally
about
a handful
real
of bullets and that's
bullet.
it.
Sort of thing like, if there's any major, like sidewalk or road projects coming,
Yep.
what the timing on those, I know as,
Yep.
when they did Main Street last year, we found out they
Day
were
before.
pretty good about it, but
Yeah.
it was pretty much at the last minute.
Yeah.
That
Right.
they're gonna be paving Main Street, so it'd be nice, I think, for residents to know
Yeah.
ahead of time what the timetable is, if there is one.
So what we'll try to do, we'll try to put something like this together, and we'll take feedback, you know.
Yeah,
If you
yeah,
say, listen,
it's
this is
gonna
really
evolve.
more than we need, or you're saying, listen, we'd like a little more, you know, let's, if we can just figure out, what level, of detail that would be most helpful, we can do that.
I'm done. Are you done?
I'm done.
Anyone have any other comments or questions?
Just a comment.
Okay.
Now that the Park Squeeze is up and going to be so popular that people are coming from everywhere and need a parking space, I think it would be nice just to remind the merchants that they don't need to park in front of their storefronts. And I did talk to George Merkel about it, but I don't know if there's something that could come from the city just to remind them to park somewhere else, so that everybody that's visiting Vergennes can have a parking space. And we don't necessarily need 2-hour parking, but.
Right. Yeah, I don't know, I know George has done did a letter flyer type thing a year ago, and certainly this is a time to do that again, because.
Yeah, May to October is when it's most important,
Yeah.
Right.
so. Yeah, that's a good idea. Anybody else? Motion?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Right.
Awesome.